I already said it last year, I'll say it again. I love this time of the year because everyone's uploading their language goal videos and I just love watching these, so I thought I'd also share mine with you. Before we talk about the goals for 2022, let's just reflect a little bit on how 2021 went. Overall, I think 2022 went pretty decent. As you might remember, this year I wanted to focus on Japanese and Dutch, and then along the way I just happened to also pick up Spanish. I have my notes here, so let's just quickly go over the goals that I set at the beginning of the year. Japanese is one of those languages I was really excited about coming into this year. I just wanted to improve a lot. So some of my goals were rather abstract and I wanted to just get back into studying, enjoying it a little more and feeling like I made progress. While that was my reality for the first half of the year, the second half of the year was pretty bad, I would say. Right now it feels more like I regressed a lot, and so obviously I did not quite meet that goal. I said that I wanted to read more, but on average I think I read as much in 2021 as I read in 2020. Which brings me to my next goal. I wanted to read 12 books this year. I got to 5, which, you know, it's something, but it's like not the most. Next is my Dutch progress. I think Dutch is one of the languages that I'm very proud of this year because I made so much progress. One of my goals was to get 30k known words on Link, and that goal was a joke, honestly. I got there in like February. I then upped my goal to 50k, which I reached in August, and now my goal is 55k, which I'm just really close to reaching that too. I went from being a total beginner and like being really slow at reading, not knowing a lot, to basically being able to read whatever I want. And that in only 1 year. So then Spanish is obviously a new language that I picked up this year that I didn't even know I would pick up. So I don't have any goals for it per se that I made at the beginning of the year, but I still think the progress I made this year is incredible. I started to study sometime in April and had classes for about 3 months. I then started reading my first book, which was the first Narnia book or the second Narnia book, in May, and have since May read 600k words. Okay, let's get into the 2022 language goals then. My 2022 goals are inspired by mainly one of the latest Lamont videos. Now, if people are good at one thing, it's taking random things out of context and put them into a new context so it makes absolutely no sense but supports their point. And that's exactly what I'm going to do too. For next year, I have decided that I want to have fun, I want to dabble a lot in whatever language whenever I feel like it. It might be more than 7 languages, it might only be 1 language, I don't know yet, but the basic plan is to just have fun and dabble. Hold on for a second, before I continue, I recently watched a video by a polyglot girl on YouTube and she inspired me to learn languages to a higher level, but that kind of contradicts to what my goals this year are. So how I decided to solve that problem is by writing down all the languages that I currently know, that I'm learning, and that I want to potentially dabble in, and sort them into 3 categories. Those categories are priority, secondary priority, and dabble languages. Now, some of the languages are in either 2 or all 3 of the categories because I might completely like one language and want to stick with it through the whole year. I might also just drop some of the languages and only put them back into the dabble category. Okay, let's go over that list then. German and Dutch will both be secondary priority throughout the whole year. My goal for German is to read 1 book each month. Since it's my native language, it's honestly not that much of a struggle. I just want to get back into reading a little more in my native language as well. For Dutch, I want to go for another 3 million words. That's the goal I set at the beginning of this year. That's the goal I want to set for it next year, as I think it's something that is very doable and we just keep the Dutch going. Japanese and English are gonna be the 2 big priority languages until April or May for the next year. I need to really focus on these and read a lot of literature for my degree because I'm graduating next year in April. For Japanese, I made the additional goal of finally emptying my bookshelf. I know it's still 18 books, but honestly they're small Japanese books, so it shouldn't be that much of a struggle to finally finish this, especially with preparing for my exams. After April, I will either have regained my passion for Japanese or, and this is more likely, I will drop it and take a break from Japanese, but we'll see how it is by then. Okay, on to Spanish. Spanish is an interesting one, honestly, because I decided to drop it at the beginning of December, but I do plan on eventually going back to it because I really do want to get better at Spanish. Just right now, I'm busy with so many other things related to school that I don't have enough energy and time to dedicate to Spanish. So it will very likely make a return sometime next year where I'll try to really get better at Spanish. Okay, now let's get into languages that I've either never studied before or haven't studied in a long time. Those languages would be Korean, Cantonese, and French. I have been wanting to study Korean for a pretty long time now, and so I'm pretty excited to finally get eventually back into it, hopefully next year. I have a feeling that once I'm done with my Japanese exams, Korean will be the language to replace Japanese. I'm still a little torn on that decision because, I have been working on my Japanese for a pretty long time and it has been a pretty big investment, but I still think that having a little bit of Korean maybe instead of Japanese for a while could potentially even rekindle my love for Japanese. Okay, the situation for French is that I've studied it for 5 years in high school, but I dropped it the moment I finished high school. So I haven't looked back for almost 4 years. Whenever I try to speak French, all that comes up in my mind is either Japanese or Spanish. I do feel though that I want to get back into French now that I know how language learning works and that I have the right tools and method to get there pretty quickly. I also think that because I've had it for such a long time, it would come back pretty quickly. Cantonese is the last of these 3 languages and it is very heavily influenced by my boyfriend being a Cantonese learner and they have cool Chinese characters. So I might actually give Cantonese a little trial run next year. And then there's the last category of languages, which is just dabble languages. These are pretty much just languages that I don't really care about getting good. I'm not interested in knowing all the little details. I just want to get an overview of the writing system, of the grammar, all the interesting things in the language. Some languages I wrote down are Czech and Russian because they're Slavic languages. I'm kind of curious what they look like, and I'm kind of still missing Slavic languages to gain the official polyglot status, I also wrote down Danish, Norwegian, and Swedish because they are kind of similar to German, and the experience I've had with Dutch was a lot of fun getting pretty good pretty fast. So I want to try and recreate that with one of those languages maybe. I think lastly, Afrikaans could be pretty interesting since I do know Dutch, German, and English. So it would be interesting to see how much I can understand without ever having studied it. Okay, wow, that was a lot. I'm so excited for next year with all the languages and finally not having them being tied to school anymore. I can just do whatever I want in whatever language I want. But so that's my plan for now. Maybe that will change throughout the next year. I'm pretty sure it will change throughout the next year. But in the meantime, I'm really curious to see everyone else's language goals. So do let me know what you're up to next year. And I wish you a happy new year and happy language learning in 2022.